Hey guys,
I don't know. Sunday night, and happy to see you guys. How are you?
pretty good. Yeah, it's only noon for me. Um, you guys had a full day. I have not yet had much time to be productive. How have you been, Kevin?
Fine. Doing really well.
Nice to
How?
finally see you like in person, Kevin, because I've kind of
Oh yeah,
known you here and thereabouts, but
yeah. I've seen. I really enjoy all your blog posts on photography. My son's a photographer, and
fantastic.
so I'm always telling him to look at them and think about these things. But he's really into nature photography, so um, it's kind of a specialty, I guess.
Yeah, I
Oh,
was
Yeah.
wondering about. Yeah, Neil does a lot of fairly local centric photography. Scotland, Glasgowian. I forget how to say that. At least that's the impression I've had.
I mean, this
Never.
is the beauty of things like Substack and Twitter and stuff like this. That it can bring people together that have totally different backgrounds, and I really like the fact that there is an internationalism to things like this because like I think mainly I want to invest my time in the world around me, the local scene, but it is really nice to get different perspectives. And
It's
yeah.
great to have both, to have this level of international connection, because we share a common interests. And so, for example, I remember you mentioned something about Lacan, that I was talking about Lacan. Frankly, there aren't very many people that appreciate that. And so it's nice to be able to connect at some time with people who do.
I was saying to Dane and to Paul, like I defer to all geopolitical matters to Kevin. Like it's like if I need to get a sense of what's happening, I just wait for
Yeah.
your summary blog.
Yeah, your content, Kevin, is like pretty heavy, you know. But last thing I did was like 10 hypothetical Marvel characters. They're just videos. It's not even writing. So I don't even really use Substack much for writing. I try to post short form video content, which is almost antithetical to the entire spirit of the writers who are at Substack. Um, but they've
How is your attention span, Dane? Because we're all talking about the smartphone era and
yeah, oh,
what's happening.
it
But
has
are
suffered.
you worried, or are you just going surfing that zeitgeist?
Yeah, I'm kind of surfing. I've suffered the attention span diminishment, struggling to put together sentences. I think my attention span is shorter than it was when I was in my 20s. I'm certain about that, and I think it's supposed to be going in the other direction, right? In other ways, I have, you know, uh, accumulated what you would say as kind of maturity, some forms of maturity, but yeah, I feel the pressure of the attention
But
span
you do seem
time.
to be like have like I don't know if it's an ADHD thing, desire to like experiment with all these new AI tools, which I by instinct resist, and I'm like, oh, do I,
Yeah,
the kind of
and
slop era.
it's weird. Like there's the American right in particular is really into AI, and it's unusual. I think it's like for the same reason you get libertarianism, which is it does not very congruent with other conservatisms outside of the U.S. And there's something about all of that. It's like an almost giddy and maybe tacky uh, enthusiasm about leaping on, you productivity hacks and now sort of entertainment hacks. Um,
I think traditionally the design world and the art world is, quite left wing. So aesthetically, you know, maybe there's people playing catch up.
yeah, I wonder about
Frankfurt
why
School was always very technophobe, so um, it makes sense that then the right would react against that. Although
yeah,
in art, I was an architect for 30 years, and it was a little both because we always had to be on the cutting edge of computer technology, but everyone always liked old school sketching, and everyone respected that. And there was always a play of both, basically.
Yeah,
In architecture, there's always a hierarchy, isn't there? It's like Norman Foster can do a quick sketch, and then like a whole group of computer nerds can actually make it work.
Exactly, exactly. That's it.
yeah, but like Neil said, artists tend to lean left, and yet what you say about the Frankfurt School being technophobic, well, it's almost as if these kind of
Phobic.
left-leaning artists have a certain carve out for technology that is applied to art specifically. But yeah, they're not exactly singing the praises of business process operations that are aided by AI. Like that's the kind of
The
technology.
funny thing about art, though, is that artists, yeah, they seem to be leftist, but it's very aristocratic, and there's a strong sense of fascism in a lot of top artists. It kind of
Yeah,
they
it
cover
is.
their fascism with some leftist kind of signaling, but I know several
That's sort of, yeah.
architects
That's the irony
are
that the way that
pure fascists.
yeah, that the art labor market operates in a much more hierarchical way
Oh,
than so you'll
brutal.
have you'll have the art community where people are their prospects in that world as far as a career is dependent on one megalomaniac who has sort of arbitrary artistic standards, and you just kind of hope that you can cut through the ambiguity and get enough lucky chances that you become successful too. And yet they profess like progressivism, whereas something that's much more egalitarian, like owning a Subway franchise, you know, very non-hierarchical, those people will be like kind of, small C conservatives. Uh, it's much less cutthroat. And it's interesting how that works. It's sort of there's a difference between sort of interpersonal sense of hierarchy or historical appreciation of it, and then the way you actually live day to day. Uh, so, yeah. I'm wearing an
Yeah.
Abyss hat, by the way. We're here to talk about movies. The movie, James Cameron's The Abyss. Um,
Oh, the best. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It goes down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've seen
yeah, there's a woman named Patti LaBelle, to riffing on Patti LaBelle, and she does.
it.
She must have an in. She has the rights to do all this stuff. She does all kinds of sort of retro swag for films and things. She makes pins or lapels, um,
I'm
hoodies.
obsessed with the scene where like they go into the amniotic fluid. There's a kind of
Yeah,
the ability to breathe underwater as if you're still in the womb. That's a
I believe that was actually legit. I think that was true. Um, when he tested it with the mouse, right? I think that was real.
wow.
And yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised. I guess when you consider that water itself has oxygen in it, and we breathe oxygen, there must be some way that can work. Maybe this
Yeah, I don't know
intelligence.
if there's any good critical studies of Cameron because he's done incredibly iconic films. In if you think of Alien, is it Aliens? Yeah,
Yeah,
Aliens and no, Alien.
that was
No,
Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott, and
Yeah,
James Cameron, and then Terminator.
yeah, that was
Is
him.
that right? Yeah. Anyway,
All the Terminators, well, not all of them now, but the first two, the two iconic. I think after that they had a myriad directors. Uh, but
right.
yeah,
But
so
have you
Paul
seen?
here. Paul should be here momentarily. I was gonna wait to discuss Parallax View, which I did finally see in its entirety. I'd seen some segments of it earlier in my life. I saw that yesterday in full. So I was gonna wait till Paul jumps in to tackle that. Um, Also, I want to get to talking about um, what the Russian incursion into Poland on some level, and also Paul is positioned well to talk a little bit about that, and plus I want to get Kevin's input. Um, yeah, so that's what I.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Paul.
Hey,
Paul.
hey, how's it
Hi,
going?
Paul.
Cool.
Hey, fellas.
Bye.
Okay, so it's yeah, we're sort of chit-chatting. Uh, this is the first time Neil and Francisca, not Kevin,
Kevin,
face
Kevin,
to face.
Kevin.
Um, and I was just showing off my cool Abyss hat. Uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Hmm.
not the greatest light, but anyway, yeah. So I did watch Parallax View yesterday, and what a grim ending, first of all. Uh,
Hmm.
and Yeah, so that's funny. I wanted to play something for you guys here. I realize that I had heard some of the dialogue in that film in music recently. Can you guys hear this?
Welcome to the testing room of the Parallax Corporation's Division of Human Engineering. You will now please cross to the chair, and you will sit down. Make yourself comfortable. Just sit back. Nothing is required of you except to observe the visual materials that are presented to you. Be sure to keep your fingers on the box at all times. All right? We hope you find the test a pleasant experience.
Sorry.
This one.
You have difficulty holding on to a job, don't you?
I don't know, I just don't like to take a lot of shit so people say I got antisocial tendencies.
Right. Tell me, has it ever crossed your mind that maybe it's everybody else's problem that they don't get along with you?
Anyway, so yeah, I'd heard that I had heard that before in this um compilation of like proto disco electro from a Dutch record label, and it was the album was called the Parallax Corporation, and for years I kind of wondered where that came from, and now I know. So
Yes, yeah. I think this is a classic film of, I don't know what you've said so far about it, but
nothing. Yeah.
it's a kind of classic film of that period, the sort of, I don't know, conspiracy, paranoid era of Hollywood, conspiracy minded, maybe paranoid era of Hollywood cinema, which is quite strange, by Hollywood standards. Yeah, we've talked a bit about these films before, I think, like The Conversation.
Right. Conversation was the same
Um,
year, and then
mhm.
I believe a similar conspiratorial film called Day of the Condor with Robert Redford, rest in peace, came out the year after.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you had Clute, which was also Pakula. Yeah. Alan Pakula, his previous film, which is also a kind of about, sort of skullduggery in high up places. In that case, in a sort of corporation, CEO is turns out to be a kind of murdering kind of pervert
Yeah, was
who's
Jane
recording.
Fonda in that?
Yeah. Yes, she plays a
Yeah.
call girl. Yeah, and Donald Sutherland plays. He's actually a kind of. He's just a security guard, but he gets hired as a private investigator, even though he has no experience, because he knew the man who has disappeared. Yeah, and Sutherland's character is a kind of. I don't know. He's a bit of like a bit of a hick, I suppose. He's presented as like somebody who's a bit naive, but he turns out to be wiser really than Fonda, yeah.
Yeah. And then of
With
course
his kind of more
Invasion of the
traditional morality. Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers also had Sutherland, and it was a more sci-fi spin on conspiracy and paranoia.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And there's another straight, aspect of these films is that there's a kind of, as you mentioned, there's a kind of grim ending to the Parallax View, and there's a sort
Yeah.
of pessimism which is very un-Hollywood, I think, yeah, in these films.
I don't know if
Um,
there's,
mm,
a bigger canon of films that help to process that sequence of assassinations that took place from JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, this kind of era of the 60s, which, you know, brought the whole, question of standing as a politician into question because it seemed like, you know, the whole thing could be brought down, and obviously the JFK conspiracy theories, were going to carry on at this point. So I'm yeah, I guess I don't know if there's any like if that's a kind of high watermark of conspiracy until JFK, the what is it the film in the 90s, but
Oliver Stone's
Yeah.
film.
obviously
That was kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a short-term callback to the 70s, albeit based on true events, not
You know,
parallel view. But
What I see happening is that in the 70s, it was kind of left-wing, paranoid, very well researched conspiracy theories, often anti-fascist. Often, there's a famous Jewish woman in near San Francisco, Mae Brussel. She was like the queen of conspiracy, and but she researched things really well. She connected dots like perfectly, but she was a little bit over the top. But there's like a fascist under every bed, basically. And what's fascinating to me is how it's all transitioned now to much more schizophrenic, right wing, kind of not well researched, but with some kind of intuitive grasping, perhaps, of reality. It's like Alex Jones, it's all emotionality. But at some point, he captures something of there is a globalist kind of thing happening to some extent. And so it's that whole left to right transition that happened in
yeah,
so many kind of things, anti-war, anti-CIA, anti-big pharma, all this traditional left-wing stuff got flipped to the right now. And so it's
So
like I see my childhood, what was left is now right. It's very strange.
yeah.
So the
There's a,
article I came across was this. Oh, sorry,
oh,
was the paranoid style in American politics of Richard Hofstadter, which I think it was like 1964. But that's a
yeah,
point where
Yeah.
it kind of takes all of these kind of history of conspiracy theories and says, "Oh no, you're all just kind of got psychological problems. You're all like hyperventilating and worrying, and actually, we should just be rational."
yeah. The targets in that, you can use that word, were like Bircherites, right? Like he in 1964. So he was calling out paranoia, but not actually of the kind of paranoia that Kevin was speaking to that would come soon after 64 and from the left and kind of hit its high watermark in the 70s as far as, fairly respectable and scholarly conspiracy. It's about as good as it gets. So he was talking about
There's a
Bircherites
famous
mainly, I think, in the Hofstadter's essay.
there's a famous Marxist film critic, Frederick Jameson, and he wrote a whole book about conspiracy theories, and I forget what is this, geopolitical something. And he was not going to say sympathetic, but he said it was a way of now I've forgotten the word. It's a way of kind of mapping, cognitive mapping, like Kevin Lynch in Urban Theory says. The way we don't understand the city is too complex, but we make little shortcuts through. And his theory was in late capitalism, power is so diffuse we can't understand it. So we make these conspiracy theory shortcuts to help us through. And so, but then lately, though, like Zizek and some of his crew have been a little bit more kind of understanding instead of like just saying, conspiracy theory, they've been trying to also understand it more psychologically, not just condemn him. Um,
Yeah, that
Mm.
ends up
so
looking like
one
kind of
thing,
liberal
let me,
patronization.
yes,
That's about as good
one
as it
really
can get.
important one that we're not talking about is Day of the Jackal, which was a British film. I presume it was a British film, but it was a British author about Charles de Gaulle, and that was a real conspiracy. I mean, it was a real attempted murder, the first one. Then he made a fictional one, but that was all based on there was a conspiracy to kill Charles de Gaulle, and they tried several times and they failed.
I think it was
So
the
that's what
OAS, wasn't it? The
OAS
the
exactly.
far
I'm
right, they
a little
they
obsessed
they
by the OAS. So.
yeah,
I just
it's a
tried.
fascinating.
I just
Yeah.
tried to look up Day of the Jackal, and it's totally dominated by some new series,
Ah.
2025
The
series.
old movie is
Yeah.
brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The old one. I've never seen the
Mm,
new one, but
yeah. I mean, what happens in the film is the jackal is played by Edward Fox, who's is a kind of very aristocratic looking actor and aristocratic sounding, and we don't learn his real name. I think he's just called the Jackal. Yeah. And the OAS hire him to kill de Gaulle because de Gaulle has, I think, decided to pull out of Algeria. Right. I think that
exactly.
was the
Yeah.
reason. Yeah. So yeah, he agrees to do it for a certain sum of money. He doesn't seem to be politically motivated. Yeah.
It's
He's just very
interesting now. I would think
yeah.
there's the nativist right that so apparently in this period, the period that the movie covers would be what, the 50s, early 60s. Oh no, pulling out of Algeria, that happened in the 60s, right? So
I think it's
62. So I think
mhm,
Day of the Jackal's set like 64, 65, something like that.
okay,
yeah, and it came out about the same time as the Parallax View, I think, about 73 or
yeah,
something. Yeah.
No,
Um,
I'm talking about the
yeah,
novel came
yeah.
first.
Oh, the novel.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I would think
so it's
the right would not particularly mind withdrawing from Algeria now, um, unless
No,
yeah,
but the thing, the parallel is Kennedy and Cuba. So Kennedy pulled out of Cuba with the Bay of Pigs, or he didn't pull out, but he didn't follow through in an invasion. So a lot of people, the most basic conspiracy theory of JFK is that he was killed by anti-Castro Cubans and rogue elements of the CIA because he betrayed Cuba, just like de Gaulle betrayed Algeria. There's kind of a parallel there. Maybe it's too neat. Maybe,
hmm,
And when people
I don't know.
believe in these conspiracy theories, there's an intuitive sense of like, oh, that feels true. But
Mhm.
the evidence for any of these things is really tricky to come by. But all it generally takes is, people to be a bit secretive. So in Glasgow last week, they had a thing called Doors Open Day, which is where they open up various, historic buildings for the public to go in. And I went into the Masonic Lodge of an area of Glasgow called Partick, and the nicest people I've met in Glasgow for a long time. Very, very chilled out, very open, and not to be confused with the Orange Lodge, which is the kind of more kind of sectarian side of things. They didn't, seem to be particularly bothered about anything other than you believed in God rather than which particular God. But throughout history, this organization, which was traditionally very secretive, and people were shocked that they allowed us in, has just been a site of conspiracy theories. So, like Aaron Burr conspiracy, like goes back to the fact that he was a Freemason. And I guess with
yeah,
the kind of current spate of, uh, you know, um, you know, assassinations, Charlie Kirk, for instance, I think we're going to talk about. Um, is there any conspiracy that can last in a, frenetic social media environment where there's just so much opinions and, fake evidence and AI? I don't know.
yeah. It's amazing how much news that is happening now would have been bigger news in times past because it just would have been in our consciousness for much longer. Um,
The news cycle of
Monica
Charlie Kirk's
Lewinsky.
gone.
We must have had, I don't know, maybe 100 Monica Lewinsky type things in, I don't know, the last few years, but I can't pin down any one of them. Me Too was basically a collection of such stories. Um, but yeah, it just everything comes and goes so fast. Charlie
yes,
Kirk,
it's
Yeah,
go
the
on.
Charlie
But the
Kirk.
Charlie,
We have there's more discussion around like his demographic profile, um, and yeah, what he was reading online. Uh, People are not really trying to connect him. Well, I mean, the right was trying to connect him to some Antifa, but it's not really going anywhere. I don't think most people really believe that he was part of any sort of sleeper cell type organization or
are you
something.
talking about this Robinson? Yeah, Tyler
Yeah,
Robinson.
right.
Right. Yeah. Well, he's. I mean, the most I don't know, well-founded, if we can, accept the evidence that been presented, well-founded version of events seems to be that he was basically a normie who got radicalized online, possibly by his boyfriend, who seems to be trans. And he wasn't, it seems he wasn't connected to any kind of, Antifa
Yeah.
sort of
You know,
cell or, anyone like this. But he was nevertheless, he was radicalized.
the trans
And
partner is kind of funny. Reminds me of Dog Day Afternoon a little bit.
yeah, we talked a bit about that, didn't we? When we
Yeah.
were talking about what to watch for this, and
Now, of course,
it is,
the
yeah.
kind of crime is completely different. Obviously, you know,
But you don't think
Dog
this
Day
guy
Afternoon, he
fits
was
into?
became a
It
media
doesn't fit
sensation
in.
as he was stationary for many hours in front of the camera. It's the complete opposite kind of crime, but that was somewhat interesting. Um,
It doesn't fit
Problem
into
with
the kind of category of patsy. Like,
yeah,
the problem with the Antifa thing is there's kind of a contradiction because Antifa says, "Well, we're not an organization. We have no central command. We don't have members lists. You know, it's just a floating kind of nebulous thing." And whereas, so you can't really say he is, or you can't really say he isn't. I heard one witness said that he walked around the neighborhood with a big black mask and black hoodie and kind of he was LARPing as Antifa. Whether he, you know,
yeah,
where did he have a card saying that
yeah.
he was?
That's
Probably not.
there's a
It was probably like
corollary
a
to that.
fashion to him, I bet. You know.
Yeah, and you kind of the corollary to that is Jimmy Kimmel calling him or alluding to him being MAGA, which the right tried to hang Kimmel with as if you can show objectively that he wasn't MAGA because he wasn't registered with the MAGA organization or something. You know, it's just a term people can throw out at you. Yeah, so both MAGA and Antifa are just sort of, yeah, loose, nebulous, often, ascribed to
It's
people
basically the same
willy-nilly.
thing.
Yeah.
Wait, does everybody say mega, not MAGA? I'm
Yeah, I was
It's,
going to
it's
ask you. I
either
thought I
way.
was an idiot. I was just, Jesus Christ, I've been saying this wrong for 5 years.
yeah.
I don't think there's a right way.
I had that, on one of the podcasts I did with Aldous, on Forest of Symbols, where I said it was like 2021, and I said COVID because everyone in Poland says COVID, right? And I
Yeah.
didn't realize in the Anglo world everyone was saying COVID, and people
Oh,
later
well,
said,
that one pretty
"Why
much
did you
is
say
settled.
COVID?" Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I thought that's
But
what I
MAGA,
know.
MAGA and MAGA, you hear it either way. So,
Okay, I've always said MAGA, but okay,
yeah.
maybe there's a mega,
Actually,
dialect. I don't know.
when Antifa, I always called it Antifa
I say
because
Antifa
it was
too.
anti-fascist. So it's Antifa. And then a couple of years ago, I heard Antifa. It's like, who's this girl
Oh,
Antifa?
I say
Yeah.
Antifa. Yeah, yeah,
That's
maybe.
a more
Nice way to
elegant way
say
of
it.
saying it. It has a nicer ring to it. Antifa, you know. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it makes it
Antifa.
sound more like a feminized name and not so much anti, which just sounds very sort of
Maybe
blunt
it's in
and
French they say
destructive.
Antifa. I don't know.
well, it does show that we all live in this kind of textual universe where we're not necessarily reading things out loud, and I mean, the thing with Charlie Kirk is that he was primarily a YouTube guy, right? And he's doing all these debates in public and then publishing online. And if you're like a written word person, you kind of the whole thing just goes over your head. I'm not going to watch an hour-long stream
Yeah.
of just someone talking. It's just, I mean, present company accepted.
Yeah, there's, I like to think that we're all of us are on a sort of different plane of political contemplation, and someone like Charlie Kirk, just a popularizer like that, is just not really on our radar. Like we will have seen him unavoidably. I mean, I know I've seen his face a lot, but I don't usually go for those YouTube videos where someone has quote unquote destroyed somebody else. Uh,
That's when I saw him on Twitter, it would always be that, and those are so boring because it's always
yeah,
bait, and in the end, he doesn't really destroy anyone. It may be, or it's
yeah,
some really kind of confused person, and
and
then
I'm not particularly impressed by someone destroying a hysterical 19-year-old girl.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
I don't think it's a very good way of advancing knowledge, this debating style where you pull out statistics and quotes and, do all these gotchas, because like people are in public and they haven't got the opportunity to go back, check the, references, which is kind of basically what we do when we judge information,
yeah.
academically or whatever.
I mean,
Yeah,
having
but
said
I
that, I
have
mean, I
seen some.
still Ezra
Hmm.
Klein wrote a piece saying that like he was doing politics the right way, and I having criticized him and all that, I still think going out there at least with some kind of facade of let's have a discussion is good. Um, uh,
Yeah, I've seen some clips where he was very, I thought, decent. When he dealt with some questions about, I feel like some girl said I feel like I'm trans, and I want to change my sex, and he kind of said very sensitively, I thought, we in the church, we think that you should, try to accept yourself. Because I think he was evangelical, was he? I think Kirk, part of
Well, he was a mega
evangelicalism.
church type guy, and I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
yeah. I'm not
synonymous with
sure exactly which
evangelical, but
church he was part of officially, but I was quite impressed by that. And those are the
hey,
kind of videos you didn't see
yeah,
actually when he was alive, really. There was these,
yeah.
destroy somebody would tended to be promoted, right, for obvious reasons.
I think I
But
called him like suburban non-denominational megachurch. I'd have to shorten that, but something like that.
yeah. I mean, I think, by the standards of the right, he was quite a nice guy. you know, I
Right.
think.
I mean,
I mean,
Andrew
you meet
Tate,
a lot of,
Alex Jones, there are much more venomous people out there that I would sooner think would be targeted for assassination, you know?
yeah,
I mean,
and more extreme people.
Alex
Yeah,
Jones made enemies of the Sandy Hook parents, and that's pretty vile. That's pretty bad. Yeah, I've never seen Kirk
yeah.
do anything so gnarly as that.
But I've heard that for like the normie libs, Kirk was kind of like the Antichrist. He they saw him as like real embodiment of fascism. Because they're simply so ignorant and they don't realize that he was a moderate really, compared to
That's
BAP
what's
or somebody.
shocking,
Yeah. So
You know,
that they were so
he's just
invested
very
in him.
he's very salient for them, and he is out there arguing and just saying things they disagree with. So that's fascist. It's a kind of a saliency plus annoyance equals F scale somehow. I don't know.
Might be he was kind of taking over their space. They thought colleges, universities were their safe space, and to have this incursion
Yeah.
must be fascist. But in fact, he's a total moderate. They have no idea what's coming down the road after him.
they don't. But it is really I think the media's fault really, because they spent what ever since 2016 at least. They've just been bashing on about, the Republicans are all fascists. This is Nazism. Trump is a fascist, is a Nazi.
To be
It's
honest,
just
Yeah. But
it's it was
unfortunately,
going on in 2008 and 12 too. I remember Mitt Romney, they were saying was a racist and all this stuff. They had all the same script, and then
right.
a couple years
yeah.
later, it all flips. Says, "Oh, wait a minute, he wasn't so bad." Now McCain's their hero and Romney's their hero. Someday Trump will be their hero.
Ooh, yeah.
Right.
That we will be long past dead by then, and I'm not sure.
Well,
I mean, one of the great things with the parallax view, I think, is that it's kind of non-political. You can't really tell what side any of the kind of conspiracy, there's a kind of House committee that's reviewing the evidence of all these assassinations, and they're like, oh well, nothing happened. But the actual politicians, they don't state their party.
Right. You do
Okay.
get the vague. There's a vaguely leftist thing in that, the people who are trying to cultivate these special killers through the Parallax Corporation, they do seem to be business interests, and so that's not much by today's standards because
So I don't know if you think there's any opportunity for, all of this political theatre to be controlled by a higher kind of business interest. It does. I mean, I think in a kind of globalized world, people do feel alienated from normal politics, and so looking beyond politics to some kind of, well, Bezos style. Let's just say Bezos style. Like a oligarch, the broligarchy or whatever they call it now.
Yeah, I could see I could spin Parallax View as coming from the right, uh, in the sense that the injustice it's trying to sort of allude to or highlight, um, is somehow breaches the right's concerns. It's somehow an affront to the right. If you were to say that these shadowy corporations looking to find the perfect killer are big tech who are trying to get your kids hooked to DEI and to kill their attention spans, something a little bit more politically neutral, just a kind of cognitive override. Um, but yeah, if it's to break unions and to keep wages low and all, well then that's coming from the left. So,
I mean, I think Pakula, he was a liberal, but maybe not uh, quite in the sense we understand today, because I mean, he made All the President's Men, of course, which is about the investigation of Nixon and Watergate, by what were the names?
Woodward
The
Bernstein.
two, right, yeah, yeah. So, but I look at, say, Clute, and I get the sense that the Sutherland character is a kind of stand-in for Pakula maybe, and although he's a kind of liberal-ish, he's also quite conservative in his attitude to, the prostitution and drugs and things like that. Yeah. So I kind of see maybe there's something of that in Parallax View as well. Yeah, there's a kind of lefty conservatism or something like that. Yeah, that
Well,
he's
there's
approaching it like that. Yeah.
Warren Beatty is
Hmm.
there, who was quite a political figure in America at some point.
Yeah.
But the critic David Thompson says that Warren Beatty saw it as a challenge to be as unlikable as possible while still being Warren Beatty and, being seductive to all the women at the same time. But
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
scene in Parallax View that sort of suggests coming from a liberal POV where he's in this bar with some cowboys and the cowboy comes up and gives him shit because he has long hair basically. So I thought you were a woman, you know. But then Warren Beatty kicks his ass, and it's
Yeah.
talking about the guy who started the fight. Well, okay, Warren Beatty threw the first punch, but the guy was itching for a fight. He was a small town cop, it turns out. So that's just how unprofessional and ridiculous, small town America can be. And yeah, that was
Yeah.
a theme. Um, I think Paul, you posted something about the Great Rural Purge of the '70s as far as TV entertainment.
Oh yeah. Well, somebody wrote it, I think, in reply to me,
Yeah,
actually. But I said something about that there was a kind of country theme in the 70s, that
yeah, hee haw.
country music, yeah, like country music, and even the colors, in fashion. You had a lot of browns and greens, and I think a lot of it came from the hippies, yeah. But there was a kind of, as well, there was a sort of conservatism rising, yeah, that I think people were a lot of people reacted against the left, excesses of the left, yeah, in the 70s, and that's how we ended up with Reagan eventually, and of course Thatcher in Britain.
there is a car
Uh,
chase scene in the Parallax View which looks exactly like the Dukes of Hazzard.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's got exactly the same kind of vibe, isn't it? As the you expect to see. Is there actually a hubcap which comes flying off and rolling?
I don't think there was,
um,
but yeah, I was skeptical that car could survive that kind of thing, but. I don't know. It actually reminded me. There's
yeah,
about 5 minutes of the first Rambo film with a car chase similar, but otherwise
but
it's got very little to do with
the
it.
rural purge that you mentioned, though,
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't know about this, but somebody told me about it. Was that on on American TV, there were lots of series set in the countryside in rural America up until the 70s, yeah. And basically all of them got cancelled in the early 70s. And the Dukes of Hazzard, we remember, of course, everyone remembers it, but it came right towards the end of the 70s. Yeah, it was a late 70s thing. So, and it was a kind of like a cartoony sort of vision of rural America, I think. Yeah, whereas the earlier ones have been quite earnest.
yeah,
And this kind of thing was judged obviously kind of cringe, I guess, by the sort of TV execs in the early 70s.
yeah. There was a book.
So that.
There
Mhm.
was a book that young Ben Stein wrote. You don't hear much about Ben Stein anymore. He's pretty up there in age, but he was kind of a normie con, and he was in entertainment for a bit. He had cameos in Ferris Bueller, and he had a game show and everything. But he wrote a book in 1979 called The View from Sunset Boulevard, talking about how TV writers think of other Americans, and he kind of touches on that. A bunch of yokels. The Saturday Night Live movie that came out last year. It's the movie depicts the first airing of Saturday Night Live in 1975, and how it unfolded that night and all the personalities clashing and everything. And you also get that sense that they held like a religious Americans and hinterland Americans in contempt. There's like a woman who plays an FCC censor, making sure that the show doesn't cross the line, and uh, and there's one scene where one of the comedians, I don't, it might be Dan Aykroyd, someone else. Um, they explained a skit that makes fun of Christians that he wanted to air. They didn't do it, but he basically brought her to tears. It was really vicious. He made light of baby Jesus and called Mary like a whore or something like that. It's really harsh. And my dad was watching that, and he was shocked. He's like, "Ah, I can't believe that. What a sick thing to say." But then he goes right back to laughing because he grew up with Saturday Night Live, and so he still watches it. But anyway, a bit of a tangent there. But yeah, that was in the '70s you had that kind of view of fly over America.
Yeah. But this is a very old prejudice, I think. I mean, Marx mentions this, I'm sure.
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah, that you know about it,
Yeah, I do.
Kevin. That maybe, oh, you can tell us about it. Go on.
Well, he mentioned at some point rural idiocy.
Yeah.
And so I was actually going to mention this in an article recently, and then I looked it up deeper, and someone kind of defended him by saying what he actually meant was, to him, he saw capitalism as this great thing that brought the workers together, organized them as a machine, yes, to create stuff, but he saw the potential of them becoming a political machine. Once they worked together, learning how to build something, they could build a political party or whatever. So it was bringing everyone together. Whereas rural, feudalism, everyone was individual, kind of just working on their fields. They didn't connect. And so that was kind of the theme of the rural idiocy, in that the people were isolated and would stay conservative as opposed
He's
to
saying like the way
joining all
that
together.
their economic form is idiotic, is sort of what he said. Not that they are personally idiots.
Yes, everyone thinks Marx was against capitalism. It's actually the
Yeah, yeah,
opposite.
yeah.
You only can get to communism through capitalism. So he saw it as something you had to go through to get somewhere. And
But I think
so,
you saw like the rural life as kind of preserving what he would consider superstitions and kind of
absolutely.
backward beliefs and
There's
practices and so
another
on. Yeah.
famous expression of his, breaking down Chinese walls, where he celebrates British imperialism, crashing down the Chinese walls, flooding them with cheap goods, and breaking all their kind of, I think he even says racist or kind of xenophobic views, and brings them into the world. And so it's really this crusading capitalism taking over the world, breaking down all these backward feudal people and bringing them first into capitalism and then eventually into communism.